Hey guys, welcome back. Today we are going to be doing a garden tour and we are going to be focusing in the front right now because this area is going to change drastically just in the next couple of weeks, and I'm so excited about it. I can't wait to talk about some of our plans, but we have a lot of annuals in our landscape. So everything looks so full and lush right now, but that is all going to change. So I have to show you how everything looks right now. We still have so many flowers, so much color, and it's like the end of October and things are still going for it, and that makes me really excited. We will do a part 2 of the back. The back looks really beautiful. Like it's kind of messy, but there's just so much color, so I'm excited for you guys to watch that video. So anyways, let's just start out in the front, and we are just going to start right over here in the porch. So if you recall, we planted these containers together and they actually put on quite a bit of color and size. I did jam pack them in there, and that is the great thing about fall containers is you can get away with really just cramming in as many flowers and plants as you want because they're not really going to put on a ton of growth, so you can really just go to town on them. And if we come over here, you can see how our mums are starting to open. Some of them are starting to fade already, but when we put these over here, they were really just budded up, and you can just see how beautiful they've colored up, and now they're starting to fade a little bit. And honestly, I just want them to look good up until about Halloween, and then after that I'm usually ready to start winter containers. So I'm one of those weird people that I get so excited about the next season that but I also want to enjoy fall. So who knows, I might leave some of the containers up a little bit longer before we really dive into winter containers. Now, if I step back, you can just get an overall look of all of the pumpkins, how everything looks. They've been great. The squirrels did find some of our corn, but they've left them alone, which I'm very thankful for because they can kind of get rowdy this time of year and they love hiding their nuts everywhere. So I've already caught a couple of them in our planters, which I'm not sure why they would choose the planters when there's so much room elsewhere for them to plant their nuts, but here we are. So starting over here, we have this Angel Falls pine, which we planted together. And this is such a stunning tree. If you have an area in your garden where you want to tuck something in and you don't quite know what to do, look into planting one of these if it can go into your zone. I will link the video down below where we talked about it, but it is so beautiful. It only gets about 2 feet wide. The geese are flying over us right now, and it's so magical actually. Anyways, it only gets about 2 feet wide and 10 feet tall, and it's slow growing. And it's just one of those trees that you can really fit anywhere because it can take shade, it can take full sun. It's very versatile, and I'm just so surprised that it took me this long to get it into our garden. Now I want to get one more for our side garden project that we're going to start prepping to gear up to get done here soon. Over here we have the Shishigashira lion's head maple. It's still looking pretty green. Usually this time of year, it's already started to put on a little bit of yellow, but it's holding on to its color really well. And typically what this tells me is it's gonna have a very short-lived yellow color, and then it's just gonna drop its leaves. Because usually we have a little bit of coloring right now, but it's still very green. And some of the leaves did get a little bit burnt over here in the summertime, but that happens. I'm not too worried about that, but we do want to come in and prune him up a little bit, especially with these little runners that we get, just to keep him compact. But overall, it's doing really beautiful. Over here, we also have, you'll see these annual salvias kind of throughout. Gosh, I probably planted these the first week of August as just like a little filler, but they kind of got a little beat up. This whole area got a little bit beat up because of the rain. In fact, it was raining all day, and I was sure we weren't going to be able to film today, but that's the beauty about living here in the Pacific Northwest. You never know what the weather is going to be. It could literally change within, like what was it? It was like pouring down rain, right? And then it just was like, boom, yep. The sun came. So anyways, if we pan over here, you can see all of the dahlias in their glory. Now, these are all cafe au lait, and a lot of these I took cuttings from tubers, and I am shocked at how well that they're doing. I believe this one is a cutting, this one is a cutting, that one is a cutting. There's maybe 1 or 2 tubers over here, but you can see they've put on so much size. Hold on, there's a little cucumber beetle. And those are just my nemesis with dahlias. But they have put on so much growth, so much color, so many blooms, and I am going to hack them down probably after we do this video, just because they're getting really heavy, and we do have rain on the forecast. And what happens with dahlias, especially this time of year, their stems are not as strong as they typically were earlier on in the season. So they get very heavy, especially because these very large blooms, and they just tend to weigh down. So instead of waiting for them to snap, I'm gonna cut them down, let them, gosh, I'll probably leave them in for a couple more weeks, let the frost hit them, and then I'll start digging them up. That way they can start focusing their energy on tuber production. I don't anticipate getting a ton of tubers from the cuttings, but I'm really excited to see how they look, just because these plants are massive. And out of cuttings, like, I'm just shocked, because everybody's like, oh, how many tubers did you plant? I'm like, well, I planted maybe 3, and then all of these other cafe au laits were just cutting. Anyways, they're doing really good, but you can see that they take up a lot of room, and it's probably not something I will do next year. And we'll talk about that in a different video. I do still want to come in with dahlias, but probably not cafe au lait in the front area. So anyways, they do look very beautiful. Our purple smoke bush is doing really nicely, except we need to start training it, pruning it. It's getting a little wild. And I kind of want it to keep its wild shape, but I want to start training it more into a standard form. So this winter we will come in and start shaping him up a bit, but it's just a very beautiful color. Our ornamental alliums are done blooming, but I will leave these seed heads on all winter long. And this is probably one of the perennials that I don't really deadhead or cut down until the springtime, just because the birds will go after it, and it just provides a little bit of structure in the garden. So anytime I can enjoy like a seed head or seed pods that look good and not really like crummy or mushy, I will leave them on. So this is one of the plants where I do think it adds a little bit of winter interest in the garden. Over here we have our blue atlas cedar, and it's just doing really well. I am so pleased with how well this tree is doing. And it's funny because at one point I thought about removing it, and that feeling only lasted for like a second. And then I realized how beautiful it is. We will come in and start pruning it back as well, just to keep its overall shape. I kind of like that weeping umbrella look that it has. It used to run that way, and then we cut it off just to maintain the shape this way that I really enjoy. So we'll come in and just kind of clean it up a bit this winter time. And one of the funnest things that we have going on here are these bright light cosmos. And these self-seeded, and I just let them go just because they're like kind of popping out of the tree. And if I just step back for you guys to see how pretty that looks, it creates a little bit of a whimsy, especially with that little pumpkin right over here. Look at that. I love how that looked. They add a little bit of color, especially in October when everything else is looking a little bit tired. They come in and they're like, hi, I'm here. And they kind of save the day. So I really love what they're doing right now. If we swing over here, we have more salvias growing. We have some, gosh, what are they called? Fatima Morgana, I think. Pincushion flowers over here. They're not doing too well because it's the end of the season, so it's okay. One of our peonies here is starting to look a little rough, but I still love the color that it's putting on. So I might leave this one on a little bit longer. And my philosophy with peonies is I cut them down when they're completely brown and just gone, because I do cut some of the foliage for arrangements right now. So I still kind of use these guys for as long as I can. And that is one thing I do love about peonies, is you can leverage them not only just for their flowers, but also for the foliage, because they really do have one of the most beautiful colors this time of year in the fall time. So I might divide this one too, because it's getting really large. I'll pop up a picture for you guys to see just how many blooms this one gets. And it's a little intense. So I think this one needs to be divided. So I might do that later this season or in the winter time. One of the areas that I want to focus on next year is adding a tree over here. This is where we had that burgundy vine jewel maple. And you can see, I mean, this area is already full. So you're probably thinking, you don't need to plant anything over there. You're fine. But I do. I want to plant something a little bit more with like vertical interest just right over here, especially because you guys will see when I take all of this down, you'll see how open this area actually is. We have more dahlias over here, more salvias, and then right over here is where we planted some lemon bee balm. And I'm so happy with how this performed this year. These were flowers that I started from seed, and you can see, oops, sorry, you can see their the purple color that they put on, kind of an interesting scent, but they've just been blooming all season long. They just go and go and go. So this will probably be something that I grow again next year, probably not in the landscape out here, but I will say they do a really nice job as a drift like this, or like as a little border. So keep that in mind if you want to add lemon bee balm. Started these from seeds. We ordered the seeds from, I think these came from Johnny Seeds, which is where we order a lot of our seeds. And I'm really happy with the way they turned out. I didn't think I would love them as much as I did. And I actually planted these for Sergey, because he's always giving me slack about not planting bee balm, and he always talks about how much he loves them, and I never plant things that he loves.
And I remember them every single time when I cut the grass and they're in my way.
But I planted them for you.
And I cut them. I take the weed whacker. So.
I know you do, because every time
it smells good.
It does smell good. You always tell me to come out here and harvest them before you get to cutting them, but they were for you, so you're welcome, and I love you. Our Dr. Seuss tree, also known as the Alaskan cedar, is doing fabulous. I love this tree so much. If you plant one of these in your garden, one of the things that I noticed in the beginning was it kind of browned towards the center. And if yours is doing that, don't freak out, especially this time of year. There's still some of our pines that do that, and I panic. I'm like, oh my gosh, are they dying? They're not. They just kind of go through that cycle. So if you start seeing a little bit of browning, that's completely normal. Nothing to worry about. It's just doing its thing. So don't panic the way that I did. If we swing over here, you remember we had a lot of zinnias, and I've already started to cut them down just because they're not doing so hot. You can see the only reason why I've kept them for as long as I have over here is because I see a lot of honeybees on them. And it's just like, I can't bring myself to take away the last of their food right now. So I'm just letting them go until the frost really comes. But you can see they look super beat up. And like these I'll cut back a little bit, but I can't, I don't know. It hurts my heart to take away their flowers. So I'll leave them up until they kind of hit a really bad frost. Mostly the ones in the back. The ones in the front I'll start cutting down soon, but they have plenty to eat in the back. But this area I do want to really rethink next year, maybe shape up the bed a bit more. I have been toying around with the idea of doing boxwoods over here, and I still have to go back to the drawing board about that, just because there's a few things to consider before I make that jump, and we'll talk about that in another video. So over here we have our purple fountain grass and some rudbeckias that we planted here, some annuals. You can see it's just full of water just because of that rain. So things got really kind of hit hard and beat up. And this is actually a bottom of a fountain that was here when we got the home, and we don't have the other pieces to it, and it's just so heavy to move. And I don't particularly love it. And the only reason why it's here is because like Sergey and I can't move it ourselves. I tried to break it and it just will not budge. Let me know if you think we should keep it and just work with it, or do we try to get rid of it? My inclination is to get rid of it, just because it just bothers me. I want to get rid of it and plant something over here, but I also like it for stuff like this, for putting in annuals. But the only downside is it's because it's so shallow, you can't do a ton of things. So that's my biggest reason why I want to just get rid of it. Over here we have Mahogany Blender that we also started from seed, and they're doing good considering I don't really take care of them. And also they don't get a ton of sun back here. And they were just kind of that, like those flowers or that filler plant that I like to use in arrangements. And I had nothing to plant over here, and I didn't want to leave it blank. So we planted this up definitely want to rethink this whole side garden and the side over here next year. Like a lot of this I want to change out, probably remove some of the grass back here too, plant the big container that we have. There's just a lot to be done in this space next year. So I am super excited about that. All right, let's move now to our island of trees over here that we have in the front. We have our Oregon Austrian pine over here. It's doing good. It's actually put on quite a bit of size from when you guys probably saw it last, which is pretty incredible how quickly these trees have grown, especially because when we planted them, they were like my height, right? Weren't they like 5'4", 5'5" when we planted? And that was what, 3 years ago? So they've put on so much size. The Hollywood Juniper looks pretty good. I do need to come in and stake him just because he's kind of growing a little wonky, but I kind of feel like we want that. We don't want it to go straight up.
That's the point.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's what you wanted, right? Like you wanted it to just branch out. And I like this because it creates a little bit of privacy for my neighbor and I, which I don't mind because we love them so much, but it does kind of create that screen if you're looking for more privacy and you want to think outside the box as far as trees goes. These can get really wild. I encourage you to go to Google and just look at full grown Hollywood Juniper so you can get an idea of just how big and like cool these can get. And of course you can prune them and keep them tight like we're planning on doing, but we still want them to kind of fan out and shape up a little bit more. Around the front, we have, sorry, the sun is really hitting us hard right now. The Emperor Maple looks good. It still has a lot of color, holding on to its leaves really nicely. If you kind of get a shot of underneath, you get this kind of amber, greenish, reddish color. And that to me is so stunning, especially with the fall sun. Have you guys noticed how the sun just looks different in the fall time? There's just so much golden hues to it, especially in our garden. So I love the way this is looking. One of the plants that I definitely want to dig up and move is this Daphne here. I think it could be a winter Daphne. It's very fragrant, so it might not be a winter Daphne. I don't know. I need to do a little bit of searching, but you can see that it's exposed to too much sun, which is causing chlorosis, which is the yellowing of the leaves due to the lack of chlorophyll. And as the intense sunlight can damage the plant's ability to produce chlorophyll properly, it leads to this pale bleached appearance that you see here. So if you have plants in your garden that is doing this, it might not necessarily be a deficiency, but it could be because it's planted in the wrong area. So I plan on shaping this up a little bit. I don't want to get rid of it because it's one of those first plants that have flowers on them in the springtime or like late winter, early springtime. And the fragrance of it is so delicious that I don't want to get rid of it. But this area does need to be reconsidered because it's very dense. We also have some columbine. I believe this is leprechaun columbine, beautiful purple flowers. I just cut it back because it had a lot of powdery mildew and I just did not have the patience to spray it. Cut it back, but it will grow back just fine. And then we have 3 little lime hydrangeas, which I love in this area, but we might move them. I don't know yet. I don't want to, but I feel like there could be a better solution for this area. But I do kind of want to keep this kind of a naturalistic type of vibe, if that makes sense. And right over here is where we have our Louis Eastern White Pine, which is doing great. And it's funny because it had a lot of brown needles on it just a few days ago and we blew it off. So again, that could happen to yours, and it's just the tree doing it just does that every year. But it's starting to put on a little bit more of a golden hue, and I love this time of year, just how beautiful this looks. We do definitely need to prune this back. It's getting a little wild. It really grew this year. Right behind me, we have the dogwoods that we planted together, and they're doing really nice. I'm excited for them to grow in. I don't know, they just added so much interest, and it just makes this whole area feel complete, especially if you look at the other side. Now that we have the 4 over here, it just adds so much interest again to this space, and I'm so happy that our neighbors again, agreed to let us plant a couple of them over there, and we will maintain them and prune them and take care of them. Yeah, but they look great. So you can kind of see how our crimson Japanese maple is doing. Our Hosta Garden definitely got beat up and has looked better. However, it's just that time of year where, you know, everything kind of just takes a beating, especially here in the Pacific Northwest with all of the rain that we get. I mean, it was literally hailing just an hour ago. So that kind of tells you like what our garden is up against this time of year. But once we get everything cleaned up, again, hostas are one of those perennials that I really just let go until they're really yellow and kind of mushy, and then I'll cut them back. I am a, how do I say this? And I want to hear about how you guys are, but I am a tidy gardener, and I like to clean things up, where a lot of other people will let everything die back, leave it all winter long, and then they clean it up in the springtime. I can't do that. I tried one year and it drives me crazy. In the back, I'm a little bit more lenient, but in the front, I like to just get everything tidied up, especially because when we get ready for Christmas time, I want things just to be neat and tidy when we decorate with our lights. But there are a lot of benefits of mulching with your leaves and your flower beds and all that good stuff, which we can obviously get into. But I just like to have everything buttoned up. So once these, again, yellow and just kind of turn kind of mushy, I'll come in and rake it up. This tree will lose all of its leaves soon. It's not putting on any red color, but it usually does a little bit of a transition this time of year, and then everything drops, and then we rake it up, clean it up, and enjoy the beautiful branching underneath. Over here we have a lot of zinnias that look horrific. I mean, they just look awful, and they did not look this bad earlier on, but I wanted to be transparent and show you how the garden looks right now. These will be cut back probably right after I film this. I want to come out here and just hack these down, maybe harvest some of the ones that look okay. Same with our dahlias over here. They just really took a beating. Our scented geranium is doing amazing, and I definitely want to repeat this next year. A beautiful flower. Yeah, look at that. So stunning. And the scent of this is so magical. Like, oh my gosh, it's just, I get so excited. I literally come out here and I just like put it on my wrist. It's so yummy. We have a coral charm peony here that also might need to be moved. I want to divide it, and this is prime real estate over here for me. So it does take quite a bit of real estate, and I think I could do something better over here that will have more interest. Maybe moving it, tucking it somewhere else, and putting more things over here that will flower longer might be a solution. But you have to remember, when you're gardening in a smaller space, again, our whole lot is about just a little over a quarter of an acre. You really need to be intentional about what you plant. And I know I get a little bit wild and plant a little bit densely with our cut flowers, especially in the landscape. But I do want to start thinking about more annuals, like bedding annuals next year, more perennials, just to kind of carry us over this time of the year. And if we swing back over here, not too much going on. Our pineapple lilies just took a beating. Look at them. They don't even look like anything. Look at that. And I'm not sure why, because usually they hold up pretty well. Maybe they just don't like the space anymore. But here, let me pull one off so you can see what that looks like. They usually have these really pretty little yellow purple flowers, and they're just very interesting. I planted these bulbs, gosh, 3 years ago. And I love how they look, just because they're so interesting and different from everything else that we have in the garden. But those might need to be moved. I would love to come in with like some grasses over here, like Hakanakloa grass underneath. We definitely need a taller grass over here, which you can see that is one thing we're lacking a lot in our landscape, our grasses. And I don't know why I did that. It wasn't intentional. I went through a phase where I was putting grasses everywhere. Do you remember that, Sergey? We went a little bit crazy with grasses, right? In the very beginning, but it was funny because I just wanted to experiment. So I was planting like one of each. And then once we started to learn more about gardening and the rules of planting and how you should plant in odd numbers and all of that, we really were like, we don't know what we're doing. Until now we're starting to really be more aware of those types of things. So anyways, more grasses would be beautiful in this this space. Right here we have our Lizzy, which I am so proud of, you guys, because it took forever for them to bloom, like forever. And I started these from seeds, so I feel like I am a master gardener now because these are so hard. And actually, if you come in, I just want to show them the inside. Look at how beautiful that is. Isn't that fun? Such delicate flowers, so romantic, so beautiful. And I probably won't plant them out here again, just because they took forever to bloom. They are worth it if you are growing them as cut flowers. But it's just, they took up, again, prime real estate over here. We have some volunteer salvias. This one was from last year. And I thought it was a weed, and I was like, I'm just gonna let it go, see what happens. And it's beautiful, beautiful, like burgundy color. We have more lemon bee balm over here. Our hostas back there look really terrible. Some more salvia over here. And these are doing a lot better than the ones on the other bed. But just look at that beautiful color. I will always have purple in my garden. And I fought purple for a long time. I'm not sure why, because it's one of my favorite colors in the landscape. And I'm so happy I have them because these are really saving us and carrying us over to wintertime. We have Firelight Tidbit hydrangeas here, which is one of the ones I recommend. They're beautiful. They did get a little bit beat up too, but I will come in and clean these up, and I will leave most of the bloom heads on there all winter long and then cut it way back in the springtime. Dahlias over here, more pincushion flower. Our Zahara zinnias are doing fantastic. I will definitely repeat these next year. We planted, oh gosh, let me see if I can count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 of them in here, and they did really well. I mean, a lot of them are flopped over. I love this as a bedding annual. I would not use this so much as cut flowers, because for cut flowers, you want something that is a little bit sturdier as far as the stems go, but they're beautiful in the landscape, and they come in like actually some really pretty colors. So if you're looking for like a cut flower type of plant for your landscape, check out, I think that's Zahara zinnias, if I'm not mistaken. So you can start these from seeds as well. These, I bought them in 4-inch containers. Right here, we have some really, really sad Snapdragons. And there used to be a big drift of them over here, and now they're just, we lost some along the way. We'll not be doing Snapdragons again in the landscape out here. If you plant Snapdragons, I highly recommend you plant them closer together. So you can take like 3 and plant them together, and then plant that in like a little drift or kind of tucked away between other things. That will look a lot better than doing what I did here. We have another Firelight Tidbit hydrangea back here hiding, and more dahlias that are not doing so great. And I wanted to leave this here on purpose for you to see what dahlias can look like in the landscape when we get closer and closer to the winter time. I personally love growing them in the landscape. There are some varieties that I'm going to grow a lot of next year in here that I think will perform a lot better than the cafe au laits did. You can definitely do cafe au lait. You can do any dahlias you want in the landscape, but I think about the real estate that you have, and think about how they start to look towards the end of the season. You can see we have a lot of powdery mildew, and that's very common for dahlias, especially this time of year. You can't really get away from it unless you're spraying them intensely, and I sure don't, especially this time of year. It's just, you know, they're going. So what I like to do is I'll come in and start stripping the leaves off, especially the lower ones, and that kind of helps mediate that a little bit, but for the most part, it's gonna do this. Sergey is laughing at me because he's like, what do you have in your hands? I have a dahlia, pineapple lily, a leaf, and then powdery mildew. It's just a little bouquet. It's funny because I always find flowers in my pockets. I don't know if you guys do that, but sometimes I'll pick something and I'll just like put it in my pocket like kids put rocks in their pockets. Just a bad habit. Anyways, we have GM over here, which is just a nice low growing perennial. It doesn't do much. I like the texture of it. I think you definitely need to add things towards the back of it just to add more interest to a space. But I do love these, especially in the springtime. They shoot up just the sweetest little flowers. This one, gosh, I can't remember the variety, but it has orange flowers and I really, really love it. Over here, the verbena is doing really well. She will be moved or divided somewhere else. And I want to do something else in this corner here. Nothing crazy. Don't worry. I'm not going to put another tree over here. Don't worry. I know what you're thinking already, but no, there's not going to be another tree here, but definitely something else over here. And the verbena, the way I would want to use them is kind of plant them like towards the back in a big drift somewhere, because they kind of pop out and kind of just like pop through trees and shrubs. And I just love that look so much. So definitely want to do something over here. And then lastly, this area, we want to plant a false cypress over here. We planted one originally in the beginning of the season, but it died. It did not take on. And I think because it wasn't getting the proper water it needed. So that was my bad. But you live and you learn. So I want to come back with something else, which you're probably thinking this is already densely planted. So is a tree really a good idea? Maybe not. I don't know yet. I'm thinking it is, because the two false cypress that we have in the back in their nursery cans, I've pruned them up to kind of almost be like a bonsai, because I wanted to experiment. And I thought, what better way to do it than with these trees? They're kind of inexpensive. So I thought about just experimenting with them. So I kind of want to pop one in over here, especially because when the maple, when our green leaf maple here loses all of its leaves, this area feels just very exposed. And my office and my studio is right behind this big window here. So again, just having a little bit more interest is what I really want to do. And I'm just so excited. Like, I want to tell you guys all of my ideas for next year, but I'm like, wait, just wait until I actually get my thoughts together and tell you. But I have so many, like, I just want to get your guys' idea, like opinion, like, should I do this? Should I do that? I don't know. Anyways, I'm just trying to tame my excitement. All right, let's end the tour here, because I will just continue talking your ears off and you're probably like, get to the point already, Claudia. I know, I'm just such a chatterbox. But I am excited that I got to show you guys the space before we do our kind of final cleanup for this season. Not final, but like our big cleanup for the season, because this area will look drastically different. And it will look like this girl doesn't have anything in her garden, but I just leave a lot of space for annuals, because it's a way to keep me engaged in my garden, because I am somebody that gets bored so easily. So if I can have when you're planting a garden, if you can have like your staples, your trees, your shrubs, some of your perennials, leave a ton of space for annuals, because that is something that's how you can change your garden every year without like having to rip everything out and redo it, which is something I always am like, I want to redo everything, but it's just me, like, you know, getting too antsy about things. So annuals really come in and save the day for me and my brain and my OCD self, how I like things to change every year. I just love to be able to do that. Anyways, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today in my garden. I can't wait to show you the back, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.